The Apology is one of the most important texts of Plato as it shows us who Socrates really was. Socrates never really recorded his own thoughts, so all that we read of him today is through Socratic dialogue, mostly in the works of Plato, such as this Apology of Socrates, or in the works of Xenophon. Do note that when we say apology as used in this text, it does not actually mean sorry. What it means is defense. So it is basically Socrates in court defending himself in front of the jury and the audience for the accusations against him. Socrates starts off by asking the audience to excuse him for his rhetoric or the usual way that he argues in public spaces, which in court may or may not be appropriate, as he actually has no prior experience of appearing or defending in court, nor does he employ mind games to convince the audience, unlike his accusers. Three accusers. Next, Socrates claims that these three men who appear in court accusing him are not the first ones to do so, and he says that he is despised by men because he is the wisest man on earth, as said by the gods and the oracle of Delphi. So basically, this story goes on like this. Chaerephon or Chaerephon, I do not know how to pronounce that. So Chaerephon was a friend of Socrates who went to the oracle of Delphi and inquired if anyone was wiser than Socrates, to which it was said that no one is wiser than Socrates. When Socrates came to know of this, he set upon trying to find out whether this was true or because he basically did not himself believe that he was the wisest man on earth. So he went to one of the politicians who he thought to be wiser than himself, but he came to find out that he was not wise at all. I'm talking about the politician who he went to. Socrates went to one of the politicians, but he found out that he was not wise at all, but only appeared to be that way to the public. When he tried to convince the politician that he was not what he appeared to be to the public, the politician came to dislike Socrates, and Socrates then realized that this man was not wiser than him, for he believed he was, and being knowledgeable while he was not. Then Socrates went to one of the poets and asked what one of their poems meant, and to his dismay, he found that the bystanders could explain them better than the authors themselves, leading to the realization that the poets were not wise but merely wrote what they themselves did not believe in. Finally, Socrates went to one of the craftsmen who he thought were wiser than him, but he found out that even though the craftsman equipped great knowledge in his own specific field, he had little to no knowledge in other areas, and even though he had no knowledge in other areas, he pretended to be very wise in all areas, even apart from his own specific area of expertise. Socrates thus came to the conclusion that all of these politicians, poets, and craftsmen were no wiser than him, and that he indeed was the wisest of all, which was why many people despised him. And these three men who stand in the jury accusing him envy him as well because of the very incident he recalled related to the oracle of Delphi and how he was named the wisest of all. Among these three slanderers were Meletus, Anytus, and Lycon. Again, I do not know how to pronounce those names, but yeah, Meletus being vexed on behalf of the poets, Anytus on behalf of the craftsmen and the politicians, and Lycon on behalf of the orators. The charges against Socrates are that he does not believe in and gods, and corrupts his youth. Socrates points out that since the god Apollo himself told the oracle of Delphi to tell his friend Chaerephon that Socrates was the wisest of all, and since the gods themselves made Socrates do what he's doing, inspiring others to be wise while being just, then there should be no charges against him. And if the jury chooses to sentence him to death for allegedly being unjust in some way, they would have to, they would have it way worse than him, because they would themselves be acting unjustly by killing an innocent man who merely follows what is bound to do by the gods. The charge against him that he does not believe in gods allegedly arose following the play Clouds by Aristophanes. Socrates reviews this and says, in light of recent statements against him, that he talks of other spiritual things apart from the gods that the state believes in. So basically, in Greek mythology, the spirits or spiritual entities are believed to be children of the gods, and sometimes even gods themselves. So Socrates builds his case in the following way. Now you say that I believe in spiritual things and teach about them, whether new or old, and to this you have sworn in your disposition. But if I believe in spiritual things, I must quite inevitably believe in spirits. Then, since I do believe in spirits, I must believe in gods as well, if spirits are gods. If, on the other hand, the spirits are children of the gods, what man would believe children of the gods to exist but not gods? That would be just as absurd as to believe the young of horses, namely mules, to exist, but not to believe in the existence of horses. You must have made this disposition, Meletus, either to test us or because you were at a loss to find any true wrongdoing of which to accuse me. There is no way in which you could persuade anyone of even small intelligence that it is possible for one and the same man to believe in spiritual but not also in divine things, and then again for that same man to believe neither in spirits nor in gods nor in heroes. Socrates then says that he does not fear death nor disgrace, as he is not guilty. He says that those who fear death have false wisdom, because since no one has lived to tell another what death feels like or what happens after death, there is no reason to believe that death is something to fear, thereby implying false wisdom in the case of whoever claims death to be a cause of fear. He says, "You are wrong, sir, if you think that a man who is any good at all should take into account the risk of life or death. He should look to this only in his actions, whether what he does is right or wrong, whether he is acting like a good or a bad man. Wherever a man has taken a position that he believes to be best, there he must remain and face danger without a thought for death or anything else, rather than disgrace." Coming to the charge that he corrupted the youth, Socrates says that if I actually corrupted the youth deliberately, there should surely be people who are willing to testify to that, of which none is presented in the jury. But if I corrupt them unwillingly, the law does not require you to bring people to court for such unwilling wrongdoings, but to get hold of them privately, to instruct them, for clearly if I learn better, I shall cease to do what I am doing unwillingly. You, Meletus, however, have avoided my company and were unwilling to instruct me, but you bring me here where the law requires one to bring those who are in need of punishment, not of instruction. So, long story short, the jury rules against Socrates, and he addresses the people who voted against him by saying that the reason you voted against me is to shut down my voice, which is different from all others. But since I have a lot of students in Athens, and I basically have engaged in conversation with almost all of Athens, many after me will continue my teachings, so therefore your work isn't done. Then he addresses those that voted for him, those who believe that he is innocent. He says that even if he dies, he will either find out that there is no life after death but complete darkness, or he will get to meet other renowned people like Homer and Odysseus. So either way, it's a win-win situation. Although neither Plato nor Xenophon of Athens identifies the number of jurors, a jury of 501 men likely was the legal norm. In the Apology of Socrates, about Socrates' defense at trial, Plato said that if just 30 of the votes had been otherwise, then Socrates would have been acquitted, and that perhaps less than 3/5 of the jury voted against him. So, assuming a jury of 501 people, which was the legal norm back then, this would imply that he was convicted by a majority of 280 votes against 221. So, at the end of the trial, Socrates was charged guilty, even though he wasn't guilty. But at the end of his dialogue, Socrates says, "Now the hour to part has come. I go to die, you go to live. Which of us goes to the better lot is known to none except the God."